Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Today, I have a special guest with me, Frank Grasso. Hi, Frank. Welcome.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's just jump right into your story. Where does Frank currently live?
Well, I live over, my address is Portsmouth, Ohio. I live over near Midford. And I've been here since 2002. I am native by marriage. My wife grew up here. And we chose to move here when our kids were little. Once we had our second child, we wanted to raise them in a smaller atmosphere. So we moved from Atlanta to here. And no looking back since. Yep.
I didn't know you were from Atlanta.
I'm not. I'm actually from New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm from New Jersey. I've lived in a couple places, New Orleans, Austin, Texas, wound up in Atlanta. My best friend was living there at the time and wound up in Atlanta. I lived there for 25 years, which is where I met my wife. I met her at the end of 95, early 96. We were married in 97 and we had our children in 98 and 99 and then moved here in 02.
No, she's from this area in the Ohio area?
She's from here.
Tell me the story about how you got started in music.
Well, it's really so when I was a kid, I think for a lot of people that are my age that grew up in 60s, 70s, 80s, for me, it was all about when the Beatles happened and that whole English invasion, the British invasion happened. And it was so dominant for me that I can tell you exactly where I was the first time I heard the Beatles. I was driving to school with my grandfather. They had a house in the country north of where I lived, Lake House. And we were coming down to school, and I can tell you the exact intersection when I first heard I Want to Hold Your Hand. And my world kind of changed, then.
Wow.
Yeah,
that was a memorable
crazy
moment for you. I can remember too, because we were headed home and we were having they were on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yep, February 9th, I think it was.
I don't remember that close. I just remember we were headed home and we made my dad rush and he got a speeding ticket and he never let me forget it.
I see.
And I wasn't even a big fan. I just knew there was a lot of hype around it, Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. You remember the date. Wow. So, okay, they changed your life by your music and all that sort of thing. So when did you start wanting to play yourself?
Right about then. It was all in that time period when I went and, my dad bought me my first guitar and I started taking guitar lessons. It was a little acoustic guitar. And then I got and I wish I still had it. I destroyed that guitar. I spray painted it and all that stuff. And it eventually just got lost somewhere. I still have my first electric guitar. So I got that maybe a year after I started taking lessons. And then started being in bands, had friends that had the same interests as me. And we started forming bands and playing. And It just kind of grew from there. I wasn't a singer when I was in all those bands. I was not the singer, which is kind of odd because that's really what I like to do.
Oh,
And that's kind of what I'm known for now. My voice, not my guitar playing. I'm a pretty average guitar player, but I do really like singing. And I never sang in those bands until I moved to Atlanta, and I fronted a band there with my best friend. And we became pretty popular. We played that whole Southeast circuit, and we were kind of like the number one, number two band in that circuit. And that lasted about 3, 4 years, 5 years maybe. And that band dissolved. And then I started doing home studio recording, and I started doing solo stuff, which is what I do now. So I really haven't been in a per se band of my own since
so can you remember what the name of the band was
then.
that you're with your friend, or any other names of the bands?
Yeah. So, well, I was in lots of bands. So the band in Atlanta was called the Sockets. Plugging in the wall sockets.
Hmm.
That was the name of that band.
You're plugged in.
In fact, on our drum head, we had a picture of a socket, not the name of the band. We had a picture of a wall socket. Um,
Cool.
and before that, a number of bands. One of them was called Happy Feets.
Hmm.
Um, and our little logo was musical teardrops to live by. I was not the
Cool.
singer in that band. We had actually a lead singer. His name was Tony. I remember him. Um, Very good. Um, Other bands. My first band was with my best friend in grade school, Larry Goldman. And that band, what was it called? It'll come to me as we talk here.
Oh,
But
that's fine. So when you
yeah,
said you did the Southeast sort of region, what territory was that when you were in Atlanta? Was it as far south as, I mean, what was that region?
oh, so it would be the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama.
That's a lot of territory.
Yeah, so we would do weekends. So back in the day, when you played at one of these spotlight clubs, you would go in on a Thursday and play Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And typically they would have a band house and they put you up, or they put you up in a hotel. It was part of the deal. That was our deal. So you'd spend basically the weekend in a city like St. Augustine, Florida, or Gainesville, Florida, or Jacksonville, or Birmingham, whatever, wherever you were. Um, so yeah, that was kind of the. So we do like 2 or 3 weekends a month doing that, and we had little nothing jobs during the week, um, for money, and had our own van. We packed our own equipment, own sound system. It was a lot of work, actually. It makes me tired just talking about it.
Oh, I'm sure with all the equipment moving in and out and setting up and all that.
Yeah.
So when you sort of ended that and what you currently do, when did you start going solo?
Well, I started doing that in Atlanta. I got a pretty good job with which I'm still doing now, my full time job. I got into kind of a career,
Hmm.
and I was doing music kind of as on the side, and I built a little recording studio in the third bedroom in a house I bought. And I did a lot of recording and writing. I was a member of NSAI, National Songwriters Association International, and made a lot of friends through there. So there was a whole community down there of singer songwriters, and I became part of that community. And then during that time, around 94, 93, 94, 95, I hosted a writers' night at a club or a tavern called the Freight Room in Decatur, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta. And I hosted a kind of a writer in the round thing where for me and three other songwriters we get on stage and we would take turns playing our songs. And I did that once a month at this place, so it was kind of my night. Yeah, and played around Atlanta. I had some success doing that. I was uh, at one point I was voted. I was the people's choice, not the critics' choice, the people's choice for best singer songwriter in the city, which was really quite an honor.
That's awesome.
It's awesome, and the Sockets, the band I was in there before that, I should tell you, we got some notoriety. We got to the place of where we were opening for major acts. So we shared the stage with Peter Frampton and Huey Lewis and the News, if you remember them.
I do.
And yep, Eddie Money, we've opened for him. He just passed away a year or two ago. And we did a couple of record showcases for record companies in New York. Nothing really ever came of that, but we did get to do those and in front of record executives. So we got some notoriety, and we were kind of well on our way. We got really good reviews from the critics in town. There's music publications. There's one major one there, and we were kind of on the the top tier of the bands coming out of Atlanta at the time.
I had no idea. I do have to say that we know each other from a Wood Songs gathering that happened last in 2022. And I had no idea about all of that. Yeah. And I know that it was a great event, but I just really didn't know that you had done all the travel, all the. So what about songwriting? When did that start for you?
It actually started more in the Sockets. So we started dabbling with songwriting there because we needed to have our own material because of the circuit we were playing on. Really needed to have a certain percentage of original music to be even taken seriously in that scene. So three of us wrote, myself, my best friend, Michael Culford, and there was another guy, Jack Ames, who was our keyboard player. The three of us primarily wrote for that band. And then when that band ended, I started getting into that when I had the studio, the singer-songwriter piece with Nashville Songwriters Association, and started taking it a little bit more seriously. But that really helped me. I've always been kind of a decent writer, even in grade school. Like when we had assignments to do stories or things like that, writing something personal. I always remember being, kind of pointed out as that was excellent, that kind of thing. I've always liked words. It's very painful for me to write a song. I have to be honest with you. It's not something that I really consider a whole lot of fun, although I did have a lot of fun at the Wood Songs event. I don't know why. Maybe I need to change. I tell you what that showed me is that I probably need the atmosphere, nothing else going on to do that. And I used to have that back in the day before I had a wife and kids. It was just me.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that is the beauty of that, is that you have designated time without distractions. That's why we've kind of not had families participate, except, I mean, obviously next year we do plan, or this year do plan on having it open at the performance time or the sort of show and tell, but not during the time that you're actually out creating, because you do need that time alone. I mean,
yeah, it was actually very eye-opening for me. And, it's very difficult for me to make time like that.
Mm.
just because there's so much going on in my life right now. My daughter's getting married next September. There's a lot of stuff to do. We bought a very old house, and I've been working on it since we've lived here. It's a great house, but honestly, it has just been a real time suck as far as all that. I like woodworking a lot, so I make a lot of my own, wood moldings, things like that with my machinery. But so I get into that aspect. I like doing it. I like the artistic part of it. But yeah, that event that you ran, um, I'll tell you, I just went back to all of the songwriting workshops that I had forgotten, when I was sitting on that porch, and I just started jotting down um, words that I knew that I wanted in the song that I created there. I
Mm-hmm.
knew what I want. I had a piece of the chorus going in, and it just needed to be fleshed out. And it came incredibly quickly, and it was like I almost amazed myself, like, where is this coming from? Um, but it
Oh,
was
you
it was
finished the
wonderful.
chorus. You finished the chorus.
Actually, the only thing that was lacking is the bridge, and I was just working on it coincidentally this morning because I guess I thought about it because we're having this call today, and I think I got it pretty much where I want it. So
Awesome.
yeah, but it was funny how it took me back to all of the, what do you call it, disciplines of going through a song and fleshing out, using words that you knew you wanted in there that worked, and then putting those words into sentences that made sense. And I'm a big, I have a hard time with second verses. I can start a song, and I'm really good with melody, but and I'm pretty good with coming up with maybe a first verse and a chorus, but second verses and third verses are always been difficult to me. Like, where
Mm.
do you want this to go? Like, how do you recap it, or how do you come back to, leave it for a while and come back to the original thought? And um so that was a real eye opener for me, that I still can do that if I have the space to do so. So I urge any of you that are listening to check that out.
Um, I've told people before, I said it was just like I was on a creative high. I just felt, I've been to two wood songs, and both times I felt like I was like not touching the ground when I walked away. I was,
Yeah,
I was up there.
it really changes your inner when you are around like-minded people, and it doesn't matter if they paint, write, whatever, dance, the artistic process. And when you're around like-minded people that are dipping into the artistic process of it all, it brings things out in you that maybe you have really left dormant.
I loved
So
the support too. Everyone very
yes,
gracious, and
yep,
because I don't know about you, but in the world of creativity or in the world, you may not always have that sort of support
yeah,
or the,
definitely.
common thought process together, just that appreciation, whatever it is. I can't always describe it, but it's very needed and appreciated when you have it.
Yeah.
So, what sort of words of wisdom would you offer someone that wants to do? Oh, and you play out. How in the world would you advise people on how to find shows?
Well, for me, it started kind of slow, so I started really playing again. Um, oh, I don't know, 2015, 2016, and I was doing a lot of open mics. And as I progressed, I started adding, I wanted more out of my sound. So I started, and you have to remember, I come from a rock background, not an acoustic background. So I am by no means a purist to the acoustic guitar. I like sounds, effects. I like to make a lot of noise, and I've always been into the actual sound portion of it, the sonic thing, and that was one of the things that I think the Beatles did for me. Even the first time I heard them, with them double tracking voices and all that, I didn't know they were doing that. I just knew the sound was something that I've never heard before, and so I try to recreate some of that with my own stuff, or taking other people's material and interpreting it the way I want to, the
Mm-hmm.
way I feel like I can sing it best. Um, what was the question? I forgot the question. Just rambling
So how
here.
do you find your gigs?
Oh, well, so I have a couple things on YouTube under Frank Grasso Music, and I call people and I find out where my friends are playing, and I call them and I, send them a clip of me, and you get hired. A lot of it is word of mouth. A lot of it is when you're playing a venue, there'll be other people there that take your card, pass it on, and it's just grown into, so I don't do a lot of dates. I do about 50 or 60 dates a year, which is all I really can do because I still work full time. So, but I really enjoy it. The fall is incredibly busy, so I've gotten locked into a couple festivals where they keep inviting me back. So I'm doing a lot of the places I do are just because they've invited me back.
It's appreciated to have someone that you like their music and you want them back.
It's a wonderful feeling, I have to tell you, when somebody actually says, "I need to get you back here," and it's just really, it's affirming. It's nice to, because generally, if you're a musician, you're just generally insecure anyway about that part of what you do, even though you may think that you're okay at it.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you go into a new venue, you just wonder, are they going to like me here? Or all that stuff goes through your head, because uh, it's not tangible. It's how you reach people emotionally sometimes, that makes it work or not work.
Mm. And it's
And
different all the time.
it is different all the time. I mean, I don't really have any bad gigs, but I have gigs that are just kind of flat. And uh and I think a lot of it has to do with, I do a really wide variety of music. I mean, it's my sound, but I do a lot of songs that I think a lot of people don't know. I do stuff from, I mean, I cover 5 or 6 decades of music, anywhere from just straight line country to Baba O'Reilly from the Who. I cover a lot of stuff, and I really honestly do songs that I like, that I think I can sing well. So I'm more about the song and how I can interpret it, and I'm not trying to fit into a genre. And I'm really not trying to make people like me. I mean, I guess they either do or they don't, but I think my choice of songs is wide enough where there's something there for everybody to latch onto. I
Mm.
hope. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You also have this, I don't know what to call it. It's a foot pedal, your sound. Describe that you use.
So foot pedal, I think I have 11 or 12 pedals that I do for different things. So, but the ones that you're probably talking about is, I have a vocal harmonizer, so I can add a harmony to what I'm singing.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a direct signal off my guitar, which gives the harmonizer the key that I'm in. And when I press the pedal, it sings a harmony over me. And I really like using that because it helps me recreate some of what I hear, or something that's in the original song that is indispensable with one voice. And I use an organ pedal which emulates an organ. Again, it's fed by the guitar, so what you feed into it is what you hear back, except in an organ tone instead of the guitar. And then I use other things like double tracker, which is actually an Abbey Road emulation of what they did with tape machines, as far as uh, having the sound, the original sound, and then the duplicate sound slightly behind the original sound. So it sounds like a double track. And then I have some overdrive pedals, delay, echo, reverb. And then I also use a bass pedal. It's an octave pedal that takes the lowest note that I'm playing on guitar and adds a bass note an octave lower to it. So it fills out the sound. And then I use a looper that I put a couple beats in. I don't use it as a looper traditionally is used. I put a couple beats that I've done actually on my acoustic guitar body in there, and I use that for some songs. So I have the songs that I feel like need a beat behind them. I can click. I have 3 or 4 programs saved on there, and I just click to the right one and tap tempo with my foot to get the right tempo and play along with it. And
I think it's amazing. So some of it you pre-record, is that so that you do?
I don't pre-record any music. No, the only thing that is pre-recorded are the beats that I put in my looper from my guitar.
Okay.
That's
I
it.
think it's amazing. It's an awesome sound, and
Oh,
it
thank you.
adds to all that you're doing. And I'm like, how does he know which one to hit for what song? I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. You just kind of, and a lot of I play almost every day that I'm in town when I'm not traveling, and a lot of that rehearsal is organizing my foot for my pedals where certain
Hmm.
things come in, because there are things I go in, take out stuff, put it back in, take it out, depending on where I am in the song, and there's a little bit of action going on there in my right foot. Yeah.
So this podcast is called Bloom Where You're Planted. And I always ask people what that means to them. So what does it mean to Frank Grasso?
That's a good question. I think people that are more established in an area that can't move to a city like Los Angeles or Nashville or New York and be around that creative, artistic dynamic. I think you've got to kind of create it where you are, and make something happen from here. I also think it probably means to me that I think for a lot of people that they use the surroundings that they grew up around to create and write. I'm not that guy, but I know a lot of people do that.
So what's next for Frank Grasso?
Well, I'm too old to really have a career in music anymore, so I really just I have a full-time job. I'm probably going to retire from in the next year or two, and probably start playing a little more than I'm playing now. I really do need to put some stuff down on tape, or see tape, see how old I am, on record some of my stuff. I have a lot of people asking me if I have a CD for sale almost at every gig, and I don't. And I really need to kind of do that. And I have the equipment here to do it. I just haven't done it. It's a time thing, and it for anybody that's recorded that tries to do it themselves, they'll know what I mean. It's a arduous path, but yeah. So I'd like to do that. That would be the next thing for me, is to make at least a 5 or 6 song CD, or whatever format is being used, electronic format, that I could I could sell or share at my gigs. Another
That's
revenue
cool.
source. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That is cool. I'm sure you do get asked because, um, well, Frank, it's been really great having you. And I do hope that we can reconnect at a later point and, catch up with what's going on with you and hear those songs that you're going to record. so, so I think
Thank
our
you. And
time's
yeah, I just want to say it's been, I don't, when you get later in life, you don't make a lot of friends. And I have to tell you that it's been really rewarding knowing you from that first phone call when you invited me to that workshop. And I appreciate you very much. You're very encouraging, and you're a great supporter of the arts and me. And you have many kind words for me, and I know other people, and it's very much appreciated. So thank you, Laura.
Well, thank you, Frank. It has been a pleasure knowing you as well. And I hope we can continue to see each other out as you play. And because, you're at a lot of events that I've been to, and also to participate in more creative events like we can do. So it's a pleasure. So I think our time has kind of come to a close. Keep creating, keep doing what you're doing. This is the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. This is Laura Womack, your host, saying bye to Frank Grasso, and you have a wonderful creative journey.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, Frank.
Bye-bye, Laura.